thousands upon thousands of entrepreneurs are deciding to set up businesses in Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. I did the same 2 years ago and it was the best decision of my life. So if you're looking to join these entrepreneurs and set up a business in Dubai in 2025, then this video will be your full guide on everything that you need to know, including the process to set it up, whether you're doing it yourself with the government or you're using an agent, things you need to know and things you want to watch out for in the setup process so you don't get scammed. How do taxes work here in the UAE, including both corporate tax and VAT that you need to be aware of, and what are all the requirements, compliance, accounts, everything like that that you need to do, and how to do all of this so that you can not just set up your business but also keep it 100% compliant. And I'm saying this as someone who has gone through this process myself. I made many painful mistakes when I was going through this myself, so that is why I'm sharing you my lessons on this channel. And I'm also telling you this as someone who actually helps people do this. We have a company called GenZone where we help people set up companies, so we know all the latest information. We have helped more than 100 people just from this channel alone set up businesses in Dubai, so we know like what is going on. We know the latest changes, and I can tell you that certain things have changed since I did this myself. So that is why I'm making this updated guide for 2025 on how to set up a business in Dubai. Now, before we get into the actual process, let's first talk about why you want to set up a business in Dubai. And this is mainly so that you yourself can get residency in Dubai. There's still a misconception out there that you can just set up a company in Dubai and get access to the 0 or 9% corporate tax in Dubai and keep yourself living personally in, let's say, the UK or France or Canada or whatever. But that is actually not how it works. Because the thing is, if you set up a UAE company, but you still live in Canada, I mean, these governments, they've figured this out. They're going to apply their tax rules into your UAE registered company, because companies are not taxed necessarily where they're incorporated, but based on where they are managed and controlled. So you do actually have to relocate to Dubai, and that is actually the main reason why you want to set up a UAE company. So before you start considering the move to Dubai and setting up a company here, you might want to be aware of how much is all of this going to cost. Now, what I can tell you is that the setup fees for the government fees on setting up your company are almost exactly 21,000 dirhams, which is this number right here in US dollars. So that is what you need to have available to you just to set up your business. But this is actually not at all of the costs that you're going to have, because in order to move to Dubai yourself, you're going to have to pay for your residence visa, which is going to cost around an extra $1,000. Sometimes they run promotions where it's actually free, so you can check the first link in the description to see if there's a promotion like this going on right now. But on top of this, you're also going to need to have a much more money available to you in order to actually go through with the move to Dubai. Dubai is not a cheap city. You're going to have to pay for the flights, your temporary accommodation when you arrive, and all the different steps that we will go through in this process. There's going to be extra costs involved, and I made a detailed video on how much money you should actually have available to you before you even consider moving to Dubai, which you can find on this channel. But outside of this, I would also highly recommend that you pay just a little bit of extra to have someone to actually take care of this process for you, essentially, like fill all the government forms, like actually set up your business legitimately in a legit free zone, to get your bank accounts for you and everything like this. Because I can tell you from experience, as someone who didn't do this, there's so many problems that happen. There's so many extra steps I had to go through because I didn't know things. I had to spend so many hours, like hundreds of hours, doing research myself. And let's be honest, if you're an entrepreneur who's even remotely serious, like, do you really want to spend 100 hours doing research, like reading the laws, things like this, when you could just pay like $2,000, $3,000 to someone who has done this 100 times to do this all for you, to get this done much faster so that you can focus your time on making money? Now, that is definitely what I would do if I was doing this all over again. But the thing you need to watch out for here is that in the Dubai setup industry, there's a lot of, let's just say, not so honest players out there. There's a lot of companies who will advertise a very low price online, but in reality, there's a ton of hidden fees. They just show you like the tip of the iceberg. They get you into some contract, and then later on, there's a bunch of extra fees that you have to pay. You now have no other choice but to pay because you've already signed on to this contract. So definitely avoid these agents, avoid companies that you would see at the top of Google or something like that, because in a lot of cases with these bigger companies, they have some low-wage employees employee that's actually going to be talking to you, who might not actually know what they're talking about, whose only goal is to close you as fast as possible, not actually to give you a good service. Now, this is exactly why we got into this business ourselves, where when you speak to us, you're speaking to the founding partners of this company directly, the people who are actually doing this, who have done this 100 times, and we offer you a Western standard service. We have honestly the best service in the entire market, and we do that without charging you an insane fee or anything like that. So if you think that is worth it, you can actually speak to us for free directly for 45 minutes down in the description. So it's just a free consultation. You can ask any questions, we will explain the process, and then if you think that we are the right fit for you, then we can move forward with the process. So if you do that, then actually you don't need to worry about a lot of the extra steps that I'm going to explain, but it's still good to be aware of. So now let's briefly go over what does the process to set up a company and get your residence visa in Dubai actually entail in 2025. Now, the first step before you even set up your company, before you do any of this, is to figure out what it actually takes for you to exit your home country properly. There's a lot of countries like Canada, for example, which is not actually that simple for you to simply leave Canada and become a tax non-resident in Canada, because they will impose what is called an exit tax. And I have an interview on this channel with my Canadian friend who went through this process, an extremely painful process. He had to pay like $500,000 in exit taxes, but beyond just the money he had to pay, there were all the lawyer fees and all the hassle of having to deal with this. If you're lucky and you're from a country like the UK that I exited personally, they're not going to have an exit tax like this. It's a pretty smooth process to exit, but you want to familiarize yourself with this. And I have some detailed country specific guides on this channel that you can find if you're interested. But once you have done that, then your next step is to set up your company in Dubai. And this is actually an extremely easy process. It happens completely online. You don't need to come to Dubai for it or anything like that. If you're working with us, you just pay a deposit to start a process. We set up the company for you, and we will then send you your company trade license, your memorandum of association, and any other documents that you're going to essentially get back from the government as proof of your company registration. After that, what you can do is issue yourself an entry permit to allow you to enter the UAE for the first time, not as a tourist, but as the director of your company. And again, we will apply for this for you. We will do all this for you. There's no extra fees for this or anything like that. But with that e-visa, you can now enter the UAE. So you're going to book your Emirates flight or wherever, enter the UAE, book an Airbnb or a hotel. And during this, it's going to take around a week or 2 weeks in the country, you're going to have to do a couple of things. You're going to have to do a medical test, which again, we arrange this appointment for you and everything like this. And at the same time, you're going to do a biometric. So you're going to essentially take your fingerprints, and you're going to need to fill out an application for your Emirates ID. So an Emirates ID is essentially your official ID card in the UAE that once you become a resident, you're going to use to pretty much do everything like open bank accounts, your phone numbers, things like this. And once you have done these three things, so medical test, biometrics, and Emirates ID application, you're going to wait for a bit of time, and we get you VIP processing. So this all happens extremely quickly, after which you are now officially a UAE resident. You're going to get your residence visa by email, and your Emirates ID is going to arrive in post. After this, you can now stay in the UAE, live here, get a long-term lease, get bank accounts, everything like this, or you can go back to your home country if you need to finish up some stuff there, sell your apartment, get your stuff, whatever. This is what I did. And then like 2 weeks later, I came back to Dubai, where I would now rent an apartment. And I have a full guide on this channel on how to rent an apartment in Dubai, get my bank account. And again, also I have a full guide on this channel on banking, which banks I recommend, everything like this. So I won't repeat all of this. I will actually just leave all these extra videos down below in the description. So when you are going through this process yourself, so you can just watch all of my videos on all of these different steps for all of the details. But now, before you go on your way, there's certain things that you need to understand about what running a business here actually looks like. First of all, how do the taxes here work? Now, many people might be aware of that Dubai has recently introduced a 9% corporate tax, which means companies are no longer just flat 0% tax, apart from like a certain categories, like if you're a mining company or something like that, you might get some exemptions. Most companies, including free zone companies, by the way, so people say free zone companies it doesn't apply to. Yes, it does. It applies to all companies. I'm going to have to pay 9% corporate tax. However, they have what is called a small business exemption. So if you make less than 3 million dirhams a year in revenue, that's around 816,000 US dollars in revenue, not profit. So if you're in that category, you can apply for a small business exemption, which means that you're going to be exempted from this corporate tax, and this is going to be available at least until the end of 2026. So if you're setting up in 2025, at least for 2025, 2026, you're not actually going to have to pay this corporate tax. You're going to get 0% corporate tax, 0% personal income tax, of course, on all the salary that you pay to yourself, 0% capital gains tax as well. Like many people will set up in Dubai precisely to sell their crypto, sell their assets, so that they don't have to pay the crazy capital gains taxes in their home countries. Again, you want to speak to an advisor about this. You want to make sure that there's not like some exit tax or some like retroactive tax that applies in your home country or anything like that. But the thing you want to be aware of is that just because you're below that small business threshold of 3 million dirhams a year, it doesn't mean you don't need to register for corporate tax. You still need to register for corporate tax. It doesn't mean you don't need to file your accounts. Like last year of 2024 was the first year where we had to actually file accounts, and that applies to all businesses, because when you file your accounts, you will then apply for, like, there's going to be some box to tick that you're going to be applying for this small business exemption. And as long as your revenue is below the threshold, it's going to be approved. You're not going to have to pay any corporate tax. But that's something that many people just don't know, especially if you're doing this yourself. So you want to be very, very careful to do all of this correctly if you're doing it yourself, because there's going to be fines, like big fines. You don't want to get into trouble with the authorities here if you do everything properly. And of course, we will do this for you if you use our services, then everything is going to be fine. The other thing you want to be aware of is VAT. The UAE has a 5% VAT. This applies if your business makes revenue in what are called taxable supplies of above 375,000 AED a year. So if you basically make revenue above this threshold, then you're going to need to register for VAT and start to charge VAT basically on all transactions within the UAE mainland. Now, still, for most companies, you aren't actually going to have to charge this, because a lot of people moving here, they aren't selling their products in the UAE unless you have like a physical business. They're selling their products to the US, to Europe, whatever, like online. Most of my businesses are like this, so I'm not having to charge VAT myself. But again, even if that is the case, you still have to register if your business is above the threshold. And if you don't do it properly, if you don't do it on time, there's going to be fines. So that is mainly what you need to understand: corporate tax, VAT, and of course, renewing your license every single year. If you use us, we don't charge any service fee or anything like that for the renewals. We'll still do it for you, but you only pay the government fees. So that's pretty much everything you need to know. Again, this is just high level. There's some details here that I didn't cover because I don't want to make this video 5 hours long. Again, there's going to be more detailed guides on different steps that you can find on this channel, and I will leave some down below in the description. But for all the steps and how this applies for your situation, how do you exit your country, what type of company you need to set up, all of that, it is always highly case by case. So I highly recommend you at least just get our free call down below in the description so that you don't get into trouble with anything. And with that said, I also make a detailed guide on the realities of actually running a business here. So this was to set up your business here, but if you want more detailed information about what it takes to actually run the business here, like the day-to-day reality of living in Dubai as an entrepreneur, then you can watch this video right here. With that said, I will see you in the next one.